A new movie has recently been released named Race. It's about the life story of American track star Jesse Owens. If you don't know who Jesse Owens was, there's no better place to find out than here at the Jesse Owens Museum in Oakville, Alabama.
The birthplace of Jesse Owens. He lived here until he was 9 years old. We're in the museum that we have of him, and his brother Sylvester said that when he was here, they used to pick cotton up here on the hill where the museum is. And then below the museum and the park, it's a playground and picnic area and all that. So we have a two-purpose facility here, tourism and community recreation.
Now, you said Jesse lived here until he was 9 years old. Where did the family move at that point?
Well, when they were 9, his sister had gone to Cleveland, his oldest sister, and she called their parents or contacted them to move to Cleveland for a better life. And Jesse's mother convinced Henry he didn't want to go, but Miss Owens convinced him to go, so they all left. And Jesse was 9 years old when he left, and he was sickly when he lived here, but he had to work and pick cotton and do the things that a 9-year-old can. And I talked to a few that knew him or seen him when he was growing up. And in fact, this land that we purchased, it come from one of the people that they sharecrop with. But he told me, he said, James, every time I see that little boy, he's always running. He never walks. And I think Jesse put in one of his books, he always liked to run because you could do that by yourself. But this individual said he never saw him walk. He was always running and just zigzagging all over the place. So, you know, he just had a talent that he used all of his life.
And so who kind of guided him as he was a younger boy and then became a young man, actually, as far as coaching him and how to run? And maybe I think there's a horse story involved too here.
Yeah, they left here and went to Cleveland. And he attended East Lake High School there. And they had a coach there, Charles Riley, and he noticed his running ability, and he took him in just like a father. He'd take him home to eat with him and work with him, and he would time him on a 100-yard dash, and he couldn't believe how fast he'd run. But anyway, he didn't like his style of running, and he carried him to a racetrack to watch the horses run, and he said, watch the horses. They just lightly touch the surface of the track, and they gliding, they not straining and all that. And if you'll see Owens' style when he's running, that's exactly how he runs. He runs upright, he's not churning or straining, and he's gliding. And a lot of sprinters now copy that style because you can, if you're not straining, you're just doing a whole lot better.
Now, where did he go to college?
He left Cleveland when he was 21, I believe, and then he went to Ohio State. He went to Ohio State because they promised him a job. He had a girl then, a child, and he had the support of the child. So they give him a job, and that's why he went to Ohio. They didn't have a scholarship, but they promised him a job, which he had, and he'd make couple of dollars a week or whatever, but he would send it home to, to support his daughter and future wife and everything. But anyway, he went to Ohio State because Coach Riley recommended it because of Coach Snyder. He said he was one of the best coaches that he felt like Jesse would benefit from. So that's another reason I think he went. But anyway, Snyder took him in and worked on his style and his takeoff. He was slow on the takeoff, and he got that worked out. He got him to, when he started to keep low and and he would put sticks so high, and he'd have to run under them starting off to train him to get off to a good start. Back then, they had to dig holes in the track for starting blocks. They didn't have starting blocks like they do today. But anyway, he done a lot for him, and he carried him to the Big Ten conference that they were having in Ohio. And he hurt his back the day before. He got to wrestling around with some friends and strained his back real bad. And Coach Snyder wasn't going to let him participate. But he talked him into letting him do the 100. And if he didn't win, then he could pull him. And he set a world record. And he won. He set 3 world records and tied another one in less than an hour.
So the back wasn't so bad off then, was it?
But with a hurt back. So, you know, he was an amazing, he just had a talent that he developed and worked on, and that you have to admire, because he, you know, he just kept working with it and trying to do better every time, and which he did. And then Snyder, after that, said, well, we're going to the Olympics in Berlin. And so they got prepared for that. I think that was 2 years away.
And this is in 1934 you're talking about at this point.
Right, yes. So they got, you know, and then they had a lot of controversy. Hitler, the way he was treating the Jews and other people over there, and then the way the blacks was treated here. A lot of people didn't want Jesse going because that would give support to Hitler, what he's doing, and it would make Owens look like nothing's happening over here and with his people in the United States. So he had a lot of controversy about going. A lot of people wanted him to go, a lot of people didn't. The NAACP met with him, trying to talk him out of going. And Coach Snyder really had to convince him that he needed to go. And finally, he, after much thought and pain and suffering from other people, he went on and went.
And then when he got there in 1936, it was a pretty good Olympics for him, wasn't it?
It was good Olympics, and he still had a lot of things to deal with over there, you know, with the racial situation, and they had to stay in separate barracks. They couldn't eat with the others. And then during the Olympics, Hitler, you know, wouldn't congratulate him after he won the 100-yard dash, and he didn't greet any of the black athletes. And we had two Jews that were supposed to run in the 440 relay, and they decided not to run them, and that caused a big controversy. And they put Owens and Metcalf in their place, and Owens didn't want to. He wanted them to run, but the 2 Jewish athletes talked him into taking their place. So.
And when it was all said and done, how many medals did he win?
He won 4 gold medals in the 100 yard, the 220, the broad jump, and the 440 relay.
And so what do you think Hitler's reaction was after seeing a black man from the United States winning 4 gold medals in quote-unquote Hitler's Olympics?
Well, see, Hitler was going to use the Olympics to showcase Aryan supremacy. Mm-hmm. And Owens, in less than 2 days, destroyed that theory. And we have a movie here in the museum showing Owens competing in Berlin. And every time he'd win a gold medal, they'd show Hitler. And you could tell he was just real, you know, upset about it. And he left to keep from congratulating Owens, and then the Olympic Committee met with him and said, if you can't congratulate him, you don't congratulate anybody, and he didn't. But they say after the Olympics, he congratulated all the people from his country.
As far as Jesse Owens was concerned, was this the only Olympics that he participated in?
Yeah, he lost his amateur status because he had to come home and make a living. I always say if this had happened to him in this day and time, he'd have been an instant millionaire. But all of his promises that he had fell through when he come back. He had all kind of big job offers, but they fell through. 3 presidents hired him to be goodwill ambassadors for track and field and sports, and he worked for Sears, and he just had to make a living, just like nothing had happened, after he had done all this. And he worked with a lot of youth, and he just done a lot of good things after his success in Berlin. A lot of people don't know about, but we were fortunate enough to go to Ohio State and go through all this material that we have for the museum. And I went through some letters that was written to him by young people, 8th grade, 9th grade, that after they found out he had cancer. And they were all wishing him well, and they really appreciated him coming to the school and encouraging them and doing the best they could with the talents they have. That's what he'd preached to all these young people. A lot of Boy Scouts and young groups. He had a Arco Jesse Owens Olympic game out in Arizona. And he was out there giving medals, he had different age groups. They don't have that anymore, and we have all the material. And if we ever get a track here in the park, then we go have that. But anyway, we have everything we had planned except the track. And I always tell them that's like Babe Ruth having a park without a baseball field.
That's true. That's true.
So anyway, we may get it one day.
We can only hope, for sure. As far as his last years were concerned, you kind of touched on what he did, but where did he spend maybe his last year or so of his life? Was he still in Cleveland, Ohio, or had he moved to someplace else?
No, he lived in Chicago, and then he moved in Arizona, and that's where he had the Arco games, and he was a big promoter of track and field, and he started the Arco Olympic Games out there, or track and field. And then he got sick with lung cancer, and he stayed out there until he died. I guess for the atmosphere and environment and all that. His 3 daughters still live in Chicago.
Where is he buried?
He's buried in Chicago, right there. It's Chicago College, I think. It's at university. I've been to the cemetery, and it's right in the edge of the lake, and it's got the Olympic rings on it, and it's a real nice place where they buried him.
If someone has never been to this museum before, what kinds of things can they expect to see once they come inside, would you say?
It's a timeline. We start off with his life here in Oakville, then we move on to Cleveland when he was in high school. And then from there we go to the Ohio State, and then from there the Berlin Olympics, and then from there afterwards what he did with youth and all the jobs he had. I didn't know this until we were doing the museum, but he had to race horses during the 7th inning stretch at ball games just to make $1,000. And we have a picture of him racing horses here in the museum. I hated to put it up, but that's the reality of what he had to go through to, make a living. We've had a lot of visitors here that knew him, and they said you're the nicest person you'd ever see. He'd give the shirt off of his back if he could and you needed it. But Miss Owens and I, we was riding around in my car when she was down here one day, and she got telling about him working for Bojangles. Mr. Bojangles. Song and dance. He would dance some and trying to make some money. And he said Bojangles come on hard times, and he'd give him one of his gold medals. I said, what? And she said he'd give him one of his gold medals. I asked the daughters about it, and they hadn't heard that. She hadn't told them, but I don't know why she told me. But anyway, if you'll remember, a year and a half ago, this guy out in California bought it off of eBay. The Bojangles family sold it for $1.44 million. So evidently, he didn't need it if the family still had it, but he gave Bojangles one. So, and I can't understand why she told me and didn't tell the daughters, but she did.
Maybe 1.44 million reasons could be the reason. The movie called Race, it's about basically Jesse Owens' life. Have you seen the movie? And if so, what would you, how accurate is it, would you say?
I will say, you can run. Boy, oh boy, you can jump. What I want to know is, can you win?
I've seen it 3 times. We went to Chicago with a family. They had the premiere. The actor was there that portrayed Jesse Owens, and the grandson was there that looked just like his granddaddy, but he said he wasn't an actor, but he couldn't. But anyway, the movie is, it starts off him leaving Cleveland, going into Ohio State to go to college and get on the track team. And it shows the coach working with him and training him to, he could run fast, but he couldn't start off good, according to Snyder. And so, you know, he trained him for the Big Ten, and he broke all those records. And then he got him prepared to go to Berlin, and they wouldn't let Snyder go because he wasn't an Olympic coach, but he went anyway and paid his own way. And then he worked with him over there in Berlin when he wasn't even supposed to. But anyway, it's a good movie. It shows a lot of racial issues he still had to deal with.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Now where'd you boys think you're going?
Just using the showers.
Not until we're through, you're not.
At Ohio State, he couldn't eat with the white players, and it showed some of the football team members harassing him. And but the movie, it's a good title, you know. You got a 2 meaning in it: racing, lacing up your shoes and running, and then the racial issues that he had to deal with. And then after the movie, they showed pictures of some pictures they took here in the museum. And they told when he died in 1980 of lung cancer, and some other interesting things about him at the end of the movie. So I would encourage anybody to go. It's real good. I'd encourage, we have a lot of visitors that come here before they go see the movie, and we have a lot that comes here after they go see the movie. Everybody that comes in here, they can't believe how nice it is. I mean, it's out from nowhere. We have 27 acres. We have 2 ball fields. We have a basketball court. We have picnic pavilions. And we have the museum here. We have the statue of him running through the Olympic rings. He said he used his God-given talents to do what he did. And he recognized he had a talent that was given to him. And he perfected it and worked at it and all that. And that's what he encouraged the youth to do when he'd go talk to them. Whatever talent you have, you make the best of it and do your best in it. And, you know, he set a good example.
No doubt about that. If you've never been to the Jesse Owens Museum, it's located in the Oakville community of Lawrence County, Alabama, on County Road 203. It's about a 3.5-hour drive from most towns in the NCTV viewing area. Reporting from Lawrence County, Alabama, Barry Hiett, NCTV.